Hey guys, today I'm going to be teaching you how to graph rational functions. So let's just get into it. The first type of question they're going to ask you is graph 4 of x and compare it to 1 over x. So I already graphed 1 over x just to show you guys. So this is called a hyperbola. So with a hyperbola, pretty much there's going to be two asymptotes that the graph is never going to touch. It changes from graph to graph depending on the equation. But if you just have an x on the bottom, like they both do, each graph is never going to touch the y-axis and it's never going to touch the x-axis. So in other words, there is a horizontal asymptote and a vertical asymptote. So we talked about asymptote when we're graphing logs. Now we're going to be doing it again. So what we're going to do over here is that I already graphed 1 over x. You do not need to do that for the homework. I am now going to graph 4 over x. So let me grab my calculator. And what you're going to do is that you're just going to put this into the graph section and you're just going to look at the points. So let's do that real quick. If we look at the points, I'm going to use the same x values. So I'm going to get -4, -1, -2, -2, -1, -4, 1, 4, 2, 2, and 4, 1. So once I have that, I am now going to plot my points. So let's start from the top and let's start plotting. We got -4, -1. So -4, -1 is here. -2, 2 is about here. And then -1, -4 is about here. Then we have 1, 4. So 1, 4, 2, 2, and then 4, 1. So notice how these points are not going to connect with these points. It's going to be two separate graphs on one graph. So once I connect these points, I go like this with a curve. Yours should be a little bit better than mine. Mine kind of stinks, but it's okay. Same thing. Do a curve, do a curve. And now if I compare the two, notice how the purple graph is further away than the black graph that I made. However, they both have the same exact asymptotes. So that's what you need to say. They had the same asymptotes, but 4 over x lies further away. So that's how you do the first one. For the second part of your homework, they're going to ask you to graph a little bit more difficult equation, but it's really not that bad. So they're going to ask you to graph g of x equals -4 over x plus 2 minus 1. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you how to get the horizontal asymptote. If the denominator was just x, your horizontal asymptote would be, sorry, not horizontal, vertical asymptote would just be x equals 0. That's if it was just x on the bottom, which means that you're going to have a vertical asymptote that looks like this. However, on the denominator, it says x plus 2. So in order to figure it out, what you're going to do is you do x plus 2, and you're going to set it to equal to 0. So whatever the denominator is, set it equal to 0, and then solve. So I'm going to subtract 2, and I end up getting x is equal to -2. This is going to be my vertical asymptote. Now, in order to get your horizontal asymptote, the only thing you need is to figure out what's attached to it at the end. If you notice that it is a -1, so your horizontal asymptote is going to be y equals -1. So that is your horizontal. And now we're going to start graphing it. So I'm going to create an XY plane. Here's XY. And now I'm going to put my asymptotes in. But first, let me just make some ticks so we know where these lines are. I'm just going to do 4 on each side. Actually, I'm going to do 6, just so we have a little space. 2, 3, 4. All right. So the first one that we're going to do is x equals -2. That is our vertical asymptote. So at -2, what you're going to do is that you're going to create a dotted line going down, which means our graph is never going to touch that line. Then we're going to do our horizontal asymptote of y equals -1. Once again, our graph should never hit this line either. So now your graph is going to have two options. You're either going to have two graphs in these two quadrants, or you're going to have a graph in these two quadrants. They're always going to be opposite of each other. So what we're going to do is that now we just put this equation into our calculator and we end up getting a table. So we have x, y. Just gonna make ourselves a little table real quick. So we should be getting the points -6, 0, -4, 1, -3, 3, -1, -5, 0, -3, and 2, -2. If you notice, I'm not going exactly in order because I'm only going to be graphing my whole numbers. There's going to be no point to be graphing all of the decimals and stuff like that, unless it's an easy decimal like 0.5. But right here, we'll start graphing. We have -6, 0. So -6, 0 is right here. Put the point. -4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It's about there. And -3, 2, 3 is about there. After that, I have -1, -5, -1, 5, 0, -3, and then 2, -2. Notice how I said before, my graph is going to be in this quadrant and this quadrant. They're going to be opposite each other, but you cannot touch the asymptotes, which means these points should not be connecting with these points. So now if I connect them, my graph is going to look something like this. And now for the second part, they're going to ask you, what is the domain and range? And this is actually pretty straightforward. So your domain is going to be all real numbers except your asymptote. So if I go with domain as x, the only x value that I cannot touch is -2. So it will be except -2. And that means your range is going to be pretty much the same exact thing. Your range is all real numbers except, and range deals with y values. So the only y value that I cannot touch is -1. So we accept -1. So that is how you do the two parts of your homework.